Welcome to Intangibles, a podcast about the traits, behaviors, and qualities that entrepreneurs can cultivate to help be successful. This podcast is created by Antecedent Ventures, an enterprise-focused seed-stage venture firm in New York City. You can find us at www.antecedent.vc. I'm your host, Steve Berg. This season is brought to you by Denton's Venture Technology Group at dentonsventurebeyond.com. Operating as a boutique within the world's largest law firm, the Venture Technology Group runs with hard-charging tech entrepreneurs to drive growth through strategic business, finance, and legal advice from Silicon Valley and New York to London, Berlin, Hong Kong, and beyond. Learn more at dentonsventurebeyond.com. The topic today is mindset, specifically what our guest calls the caring mindset. What that involves is the approach to doing business. It impacts communication, customer satisfaction, organization, business, process, and of course, work environment and company culture. As you will see from this discussion, there are a whole host of intangible qualities that underpin the caring mindset. Subir Chowdhury is the chairman and CEO of ASI Consulting Group, leaders in strategic initiatives, quality consulting, and training. Subir has worked with many organizations, large and small, across diverse industries, including manufacturing, healthcare, food, government, and nonprofit. He's helped hundreds of companies save billions of dollars. Subir is the author of 15 books, including international bestsellers such as The Ice Cream Maker and The Power of Six Sigma. His most recent book is called The Difference: When Good Enough Isn't Enough. It was released this year, and it is about the caring mindset. It's my pleasure to welcome Subir Chowdhury. Hi, Subir. It's really nice to meet you, and thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, look, you've got a really interesting work history. What else would you like to tell people about yourself?
Well, I live in Los Angeles, but my office is in Michigan. And also I love, irrespective of my consulting work, I also am a big fan of the South Asian art as well as the Impressionist work. So that is kind of my collector of those areas. So that is and then I have two children. One is 16-year-old, another one, that is my daughter, and my son is 10-year-old. So, and I have a lovely wife. So trying to make a difference.
So you're a pretty well-rounded person there, kind of a balance between the analytical and the arts and culture.
Yes.
So the reason that I reached out to you, as I mentioned in the intro, is because your recent work on the caring mindset, I think, is really pertinent right now. And I don't mean caring as in warm-hearted, but caring as in, and I mean, you don't mean caring as in warm-hearted, but caring as in giving a damn, specifically as it relates to leaders and employees of companies. If you don't mind, let's get right into it. Would you define the caring mindset for me?
Yeah, I think before I even define the caring mindset, what I'd like to do, I'd like to give you a little bit of the background, how even I came to the caring mindset. Because as you mentioned in your introduction that I saved organization billions of dollars, basically my expertise or last 20 years, I've been helping organization to become more effective. And effective in a sense that, and even though I was known as a quality guru, but my expertise is much more like helping organization how to make their process good, process robust. So as you mentioned about my book about the power of Six Sigma, so I was known around the world on my work of Six Sigma and design for Six Sigma. So typically most corporations hire me to come in to literally save them bottom line. So for an example, recently one Fortune 100 company around 2 years ago, they have a major recall. They contacted me, automotive company. They contacted me and said, Subir, can you save us $2 billion in 3 years? And 18 months later, I saved them $2 billion. It didn't take 3 years. In 18 months, I saved them $2 billion. Now, the question is that what happened is then what I found out over the years that around maybe 3 or 4 years back, I found out, suppose for the sake of discussion, two same size of company hire me as a consultant and using my process, both the company, using my process with my help. And so for an example, for the sake of discussion, it can be GM and Ford, or maybe it can be Airbus and Boeing, right? They hired me as a consultant and both of them use me and my process and doing their work. But it's still, one client is getting 10x return, another client is getting 100x return. So initially, I was very puzzled by that, because my whole thought process is that why they are getting, only 10x, but another client is getting 100x. So initially, what I thought, maybe my process is flawed. Maybe, maybe we are not good teachers. So I was kind of blaming me and my team. Then what we did, we said, no, let us go back and study each of these organizations. So last 5 years, I've done a study with hundreds of companies of my client, from a small client to a large client, and trying to find out what is the difference, why one is getting 100x, one is getting 10x using the same process. That was the time it came out. It is nothing to do with process, it's about the people. Because the company which is getting 100x return, majority of their people has a quality mindset or caring mindset. That means they care for their company, they care for themselves, they care for their colleagues, they care for their families. And so then I thought about, okay, how can I teach organization or an individual, especially individual at any level, to develop the caring mindset? And based on that and trying to understand what those caring mindsets are, I literally asked thousands of people at all level in all types of companies. And there is a 4 attribute came out, human attribute. And I'm very honest with you, anybody at any level can practice this. This is not for CEO. This is not for just only for middle managers or a janitor. It is for all of them. Anybody can practice caring mindset. And the other thing is not only for the workplace, it is also at your home, at your community. So because we as a human being, it's not like, I'm doing something unethical at workplace doesn't mean that I'll not be doing anything unethical at my home, because we are human beings. So we cannot just turn on and off. Like, even though we may be able to do it for a small period of time, but ultimately your true self will come out. So that really generated this whole book about the difference. So the book's main purpose is why good enough is not enough. And so it can be a startup to a large corporation. If the CEO or the senior leaders or the founders of these companies think about, how can I establish an organization that will make a dent to the world, that will make a dent to the society or humanity? If that is the objective, any startup or any the new entrepreneur has, they can make a difference. And then once they have that vision, then they have to think about anybody I hire, anybody I work with, anybody I serve, how can I make sure I can emphasize to them about the caring mindset and making a difference?
So I think, to me, the initial point was good process gives you a multiple to improvement, but good process plus good organization gives you an exponent to improvement. And I think that
you got it.
That's hugely powerful.
Yes.
Okay, so we defined the 4 kind of pieces or parts that you think of in terms of caring mindset. The first thing you mentioned was being straightforward. We did a podcast with Kim Scott on radical candor. In addition, I know that the famed investor Ray Dalio has a principle espousing direct. I think it's safe to say that you're on solid ground with that particular trait. What I'd like your thoughts on are why being direct and open with people in your communication is actually a key component of caring mindset. Why does that piece have to be part of it?
Because the thing is that without the straightforwardness, what happens is that, the fear culture will come out. The underlying theme, like the lot of the time, the pride and ego come out that, hey, I'm the top of the organization, so everything I say, I'm right. That type of mindset, pride or ego, or you create a fearful culture, especially for the startup. If they don't have that culture of a straightforwardness from the day one, look at what happened recently in Hollywood with the Harvey Weinstein situation, right? Think about that whole part, right? Even a lot of people knew about it, and the people who even got abused by it, they knew about it, but they didn't protest at that time with the fear or whatever, right? And and ultimately, over time, ultimately surfaced. There is a Randy Pausch. He wrote a book called the Last Lecture. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon and died at the age of 51 or 52 in cancer. He said something very profound. It says, it is interesting the secrets you decide to reveal at the end of your life, right? And I, in my book, as you read, in the book, I talked about a story about one of my clients. This client, when I first met him around 15 years or 20 years ago, at that time he was a low-level senior, like a kind of a low-level engineer and kind of a low-level manager level, senior engineer manager level, and ultimately he became the chief purchasing officer of one of the Fortune 100 company. And the funny thing was, this gentleman, all his life, what he did, he created a fear culture. He created a kind of an authoritarian type of culture. Anybody work, and all the work, all of his men and women work for him. He take all the credit for himself, and anybody try to challenge it, he get rid of them. And so this is the things went on. Now what happened is, one day I got a call and saying that he needs to see me immediately. And so I went in his office. He closed this door, and he basically shared the story saying that, Subir, doctor gave me only 2 weeks to survive, and I have cancer spread all of my body. And at that time, he was only 52 years old. Okay, and so I said, oh my God, what are you telling me? I said, how I can help? He said, Subir, no matter what, I'm dying. I have only 2 weeks. So maximum it may become 4 weeks. I don't need your help on that. I said, okay, where I can help you? He said, can you teach me forgiveness? I said, what do you mean? He said, can you teach me how to earn forgiveness? I said, tell me why you're saying that. He said, Subir, last 20 years, 15 or 20 years, you continuously cautioned me, telling me I should not do this. This is not the way to lead a life. Even though I got all the promotion, but now I am in the death is coming. What I've done is everything wrong. I wish I can change that, And then he became very straightforward. And so what I told him, I said, only advice I can give you, being honest to yourself, and take the telephone and tell them what you have done is wrong. And you want their forgiveness. You don't need my help. There's no magic to it. Be straight about it. So I think a lot of the time, what I'm seeing in organization, when a company is small and when they really grow big, what happens is that if you don't build that culture of straightforwardness, that means be honest rather than tell me honestly. And especially the senior leaders should continuously encourage. And even if they are honest, they should not punish. They can show their emotion. They can be upset about it and everything. That's okay. But don't punish for honesty. And the more you do that, otherwise, the more the organization will be successful. Look at what happened to a company like Volkswagen. Think about that. Volkswagen, that they hide the information, and then ultimately, 5 years later, they got caught, right? Look at what happened to General Motors, that ignition switch issue. Ultimately, the truth will come out. So unless you create that culture of honesty and a straightforward type of culture, openly discussing the weak, bad, ugly, everything, what will happen is that little by little, you are doing the disservice if you don't promote that as a culture from the day one. So that would be my, the other thing I wanted to kind of point it out as a statistical number. Cornell University did a study. White collar crime estimated to cost US $300 billion annually. White collar crime cost America $300 billion. Think about that, right? These are highly educated people. They are doing dishonest thing, right? And I think, if we don't step up and saying that, we should embrace and we should not punish for their straightforwardness. If something is wrong, they should say, hey, look, this is not the right behavior, or this is not the right thing. If they don't say that, because, and the reason I tell you, when I tell you that I saved $2 billion in an organization, Do you know what is the out of the $2 billion? Around 70% or 80% of that $2 billion, those processes broken and everything, is because they knew about it, they're afraid about it for the punishment or whatever from the senior managers, and we as an external people coming out from outside to identify them, and then we made sure senior leaders don't punish them, then ultimately we help them to solve those problems. So but my point is, it should not happen in the first place if the culture is right.
So let's flip it on its head, right? We keep talking about the bad things associated with not doing it. What are the good things associated with doing it in an organization? Once you are candid and transparent in your communications, what positive outcomes can you expect in an organization?
Okay, what the positive outcome would be, for an example, you'll have some less problem. Even when you openly talk about it, even you can fix your own processes, and if there's no punishment involved to it, and for the mistakes, then the employees will be collectively working together to solve the problem themselves, right? It would be like what I have seen in those type of cultures, that they come out and the innovation grow much more. So because they know, even if they come up with a stupid idea, they're openly talking about it among the other colleagues. And some colleagues will say, no, that's a stupid idea, even in front of their bosses, right? So, and that really helps. A lot of the time, what I see, there's a big detachment between senior leaders and the workforce, big detachment. That means they are not telling what is going on underlying theme. And those are the things will be completely gone away. And when those type of things completely gone away, innovation will come. Then the people will be thriving. Because there's no fear. And when there's no fear, the lot of the good things can happen. You will see a lot more bondage with your employees. They will deeply care about the organization. You will have more loyalty you will find from your employees. That's what I've seen within the companies which are much more a straightforward culture.
And so how does the leader enable this? Does it just do what I do? Is it just
exactly,
set by
right.
example?
Yes, absolutely. It is the leader. Let me give you one example. On the prime example is, believe it or not, even though it is a very large conglomerate, but Jack Welch in GE, I have firsthand witnessed what Jack used to do. If he doesn't know something, in front of your absolutely bottom of the, bottom, like a worker level, if he doesn't have an answer, he immediately say, hey, do you know what? I didn't get this. Can you tell me this? And I didn't understand it properly. Can you explain that to me better? Direct, no ego, nothing, right? And it created a huge amount of, especially in such a complex organization, that type of a straightforwardness ultimately, it basically his next level and the next level to the next level, everybody became automatically a straightforward because their boss is a straightforward.
Yeah, they didn't have to walk around pretending like they're perfect, because
you're absolutely right.
Nobody is.
Yes.
Okay, so the next part of the caring mindset that you mentioned is thoughtfulness.
Right.
I think of thoughtfulness as empathy plus action, meaning that you notice something is not right and then you actually do something to fix it. Is that how you think of thoughtfulness?
Absolutely, yes. But I wanted to also make sure that nobody think about when I say the thoughtfulness, I don't want to turn into everybody to become like Mother Teresa. That is not my intent. What my intent is just to being attentive to others, attentive to other human being, okay? Considerate to them, unselfish, or being helpful. Because what's happening is the social media era, even when there is a lunch break, what I find, everybody is in their iPhone and they're sitting together, having lunch together, not talking to each other. They're continuously texting to other people or whatever, or reading something. And there's no eye contact, no discussion, not even discussing about, hey, I see you a little bit worried. What's going on? Is it okay? Is your family fine? Like I talk about in the book in a very one of the story about even it was a big wake up call for myself that how I got a lesson for myself. So for example, that a story, if you read the book, you had seen that I was taking a flight from Detroit, from Los Angeles to Detroit, and obviously I'm very lucky that my client always give me the business class airfare wherever I go, and they pay for it. So I was sitting in a business class seat in one of the flight, and so we boarded fast. And after we boarded that, then the economy class passengers is coming. So there is a older gentleman, like maybe 75 age range, came in, and he sat in the first row of the economy class. And when he sat there, that was the time the flight attendant is serving us the drink. And so when the flight attendant come to the last row of the business class, this older gentleman said, "Hey, can I get a glass of water?" And flight attendant looked at him and said, "Sir, we don't serve any drink that to the economy class passenger until you are airborne." And so this older gentleman said, "Hey, I understand that, but I'm so thirsty because I have to walk from one corner to another corner, and it was such a long walk. I'm just asking for only a glass of water." She again gave her a look, saying that, "Sir, I told you already." And so she declined. And there is and we are just like all alert, and we feel bad. But guess what happened? There is a younger gentleman. He was sitting on the aisle seat across from me. He immediately went, in the cabin and poured a glass of water and served this guy, right? And saying that, "Sir, this is a glass of water." And then he sat, and immediately all the business class passengers kind of clapped. Now the point at that time, the aha moment for me was why I was also sitting on the aisle seat, why I did not take that action, and that was the time I asked the gentleman, that young man, he might be 22, 23. I looked at him and I said, "Can you a little bit share with me what attribute you had that you take that action I did not?" And basically he looked at me, he said, "Look, honestly speaking, there is no formula. I just felt that I just cannot tolerate anything, that if I can make an impact, I don't care what they say. If it is a small thing, this is a very small thing to do." He said, "Do you think that, Mr. Chowdhury, that this flight attendant would be fired if she served a glass of water?" No. Airlines will not punish her if she served a glass of water. No. But, the question would be, when I talk about the thoughtfulness, is about that just to be attentive your surrounding and to make a difference to others, having whatever a small thing you can do. So your next door neighbor, he might be traveling, and you saw all of his mails, they cannot deliver inside of it. And if you just see something, you said, "Hey, look, do you know what? I should, keep it. Otherwise it might be raining. Let me put it in my home. As soon as it comes in, maybe I'll deliver to him." Or do something, whenever you see that you can make a difference. So even in your workplace, a lot of the time, in the past, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, before the social media era, I used to see people are talking to each other. People are trying to helping hand. And I think it's not that it doesn't exist. It still exists, but it's much less. And organizations are paying the price for it, and that's what it is. And when I talk about the thoughtfulness, just to give your listener some key two things they can do. What I call it as being thoughtful is a two-step process. First step is listening, and second step is empathy. Problem is that the reason we don't even show our empathy because we are not listening. So for an example, when this older gentleman said, can you please give me a glass of water? Honestly speaking, I heard it, but I didn't listen to it. So what is the difference between I heard it, I didn't listen to it? Listening means, do you truly internalize? After you hearing it, did you internalize it? Did you put yourself on his shoe? Did I feel, oh, I am thirsty, I need a glass of water?
Yeah,
how I will feel. You know what I'm saying?
I do know
And
what you're saying.
yeah, and once you have that, then what do you do? Then your action will come. Then you will show your empathy. If you see that problem, if somebody's pain is your pain, and you truly believe that, you put yourself on that shoe, then automatically your empathy will come in. And I'm very honest with you, traditionally, traditionally, we as a human being are good people. I truly believe that. Like 99% of the people are good people, but they don't put themselves on the other people's shoe.
So I've always believed that thoughtfulness, particularly the empathy part, was genetic, meaning that you kind of have it in your character or you don't. And the stories that you're telling right now kind of illustrate that you don't really think that that's the case. So
No.
being that, how would I, as an individual, become more thoughtful or become more empathetic?
I think the first thing you have to think about very simplistically, anything you see, like like the first step would be anything you see that you believe that somebody made a difference for you, whatever the capacity, even if you see, you start saying thank you. The more you say thank you to others, right? Because the problem is that every day when you, I, or any of your listener wake up, we are bombarded with all the negative news media, right? Negative information, either in the social media or television or everywhere is negative, 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 right? It makes a tremendous amount of headlines, right? So what you have to think of, no, I wanted to see it as a positive, right? So what do is that, you go out and you try to start thank you. Like if somebody does something, you just start saying thank you. That is number one, right? Even if you go out of your way to say thank you. The second thing is, then you think about, okay, if anything you see to be little bit, try to be in your workplace or in your home or at your community, you always try to see if there is anything you can make a contribution. How small it is, it doesn't matter. Even if it's a very tiny little, right? Even if you see, like I talked about in the book about seeing a toothpick, right? If you see a toothpick on the floor or anything you see on the floor, you pick it up and you put it in the trash because you are making a difference, because you care for the environment. Anything you can see that you personally think that even if it's a small tiny bit, even if nobody thank you for that, you still try to demonstrate that, try to make a difference. If you have that mentality, and the other thing is that you always try to put yourself on somebody else's shoe. Once you have that, you will be surprised how you are becoming little by little empathetic.
I've heard that about gratitude, about expressing gratitude being the beginning of improving one's kind of empathetic self. So, all right. So now I've worked on me. My last question was about how I, as an individual, become more thoughtful. How does a leader incent thoughtfulness in his organization, especially if that's not necessarily part of the employee's job description?
See, what the leaders has to do, if he sees or he or she sees that in the organization that somebody is demonstrating thoughtfulness, first of all, he or she as a leader has to do that and demonstrate they are thoughtful, right? Once they demonstrate that, then once they see at any level in the organization showing and doing something thoughtful, instantly reward them. Sometimes it can be financial reward. Sometimes it can in front of the other colleagues, you stand them out. You put them and say, do you know what? This is the one thing you have done so profound and so thoughtful. I wanted to commend you. Irrespective of your position in the organization, I wanted to commend you what you have done. And let me share that story with you. And then you share that story with them. And then what do? You tell all the leaders, hey, even though this is his title, what he has done is so profound. I expect all of you to do the same thing what he has done and demonstrate that, because that's what is the true leadership is all about. So once you reward them, or credit them in front of the other employees, it will stand out. One of the things I have seen some leaders, they have done, and very honest with you that even in some of the large organizations, I've seen some of the CEOs used to carry a small checkbook in their pocket. And even though they on the spot, they gave a $100 check. They just wrote a $100 check and gave it to them. And it completely was surprised how it changed the culture of the organization, because they never expected, a assembly line worker never expected to get a $100 check, So I think the leaders is all about by action. They have to show themselves, share their story, share their own story. Hey, today morning, when I wake up, I was, thinking about myself, and I just wanted to tell all of you that this organization cannot be successful without the hard effort and hardworking efforts of all of the people, working for our organization. And from the bottom of my heart, as a leader and the CEO of this company, I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I sincerely appreciate it. Or you tell all of them, if it's depending on the company size, you tell them, hey, I really wanted to take you for a drink, or I wanted to take you for, something, or can we celebrate, showing that you care.
Yeah.
If the leader does that, that will make a difference.
So I like the story about the checkbook because, yes, it's connecting a positive behavior with a reward, but it's also highly memorable, right? And and it makes a really great story from one employee to the next employee. It creates lure and legend around an organization that kind of, I don't know if it actually creates culture, but certainly it perpetuates culture. So I think that's a great one. All right, I want to move on. The third item that you mentioned in the caring mindset is accountability. In my mind, accountability really permeates everything else on the list that you've given us. You can't say something, for example, outrageous in an organization and not be held accountable for it. You're not thoughtful if you only have empathy but no ownership of the action associated with making something that you see wrong right. We haven't actually talked about this one yet because it's the last one in your list, but resolve, the fourth piece of the caring mindset. Resolve is all about accountability to yourself. Why did you make accountability a standalone component of the caring mindset as opposed to just folding it into the other qualities?
See, I think a lot of the time I see people, accountability, the way I defined it, is much more like taking personal responsibility. It's not that somebody else is making you as an accountable, rather than you yourself feel you are accountable of your action, right? So one of the quote I always, I love about, like Mother Teresa talked about, do not wait for leaders, do it alone. Think about it. Do not wait for leaders, do it alone. When Mother Teresa did her work, she didn't go to Pope and said, okay, there's so many people are dying in Calcutta, street of Calcutta. Can you please give me the permission so that I can do this work? She didn't. She felt, saving these lives, dying people, that itself is a service to God. That is the way she believed, right? And she just did it, and rest is history. What I'm trying to say is that majority of the time, what I see, people as an individual, they always feel that, oh, it's not my job. That is a major problem. They always think that there's a problem happen. They always say, oh, that's not my job, that's somebody else's. My argument would be, no, you work for this organization. You always feel any problem of that organization is your job. What can you do? How you can help, right? So if you take that as a personal responsibility, first thing is that I talk about the 5 things being how you can become yourself to develop that being accountable. First thing would be, number 1 is being aware that something needs to be done. If there's a problem, you always think something needs to be done. You being aware of that. Number 2 is taking the personal responsibility that, hey, it's not anybody else's problem, it's my problem because it is my organization. Number 3, making the choice and decision to act. A lot of the time you feel it is your responsibility, but you ignore. You are not making the choice or decision to act. You must make a decision to act on it. Number 4, thinking deeply about potential consequences of your choice. So if you don't do it, so for an example, in a lot of the time that a small problem become a very large problem when the time passed by. But when it was a small problem, if you don't think about, hey, if this problem grow to a very large problem, what would be the consequence? Consequence might be, even if it cost my company so much of money, they may lay off. And I might be one of the guy might be laid off too. And then the fifth point is you have to set a high expectation. That means, unless you don't set a high expectation, then your personal accountability may not come. A lot of the time, what I find is that people do not set up the high expectation, right? Even the managers, especially the managers, they don't. And that really, so they, because of that, employees are not motivated. So, one of the example I gave about a 13-year-old girl in 2013, a 13-year-old girl from Illinois, that she was very angry because she read in the social media that a 11-year-old Florida girl was bullied by the classmate and committed suicide. So she thought on that day, this cyberbullying, everybody talking about it, I've been hearing when I was 7 years old, and I'm now 13. And even though I live in Chicago, but another 11-year-old girl in Florida committed suicide because of the cyberbullying. So do you know what? Enough is enough. I will take that as a personal responsibility to solve this problem. I don't care what my parents said. I don't care about what my teachers say. I wanted to solve this problem myself. And then what she did, she went to the research mode, and ultimately, long story short, she came up with an app. She came up with an app called Rethink. Rethink. What this does, she found out that whenever adolescents doing the bullying or anything like that nature, their brain is not thinking. So what this does, anytime if you have that app in your iPhone or in your laptop or whatever, what it does, if you have that app, automatically it will tell you, hey, are you sure you wanted to send this message to somebody? Because your message is very offensive. It may hurt somebody's feeling. Are you sure you wanted to send this? Guess what happened? 93% of the adolescents who used the app decided not to post any hurtful message after they had been opportunity to rethink. 93% of the people, they stopped. Those adolescents have stopped. So she solved that problem. She made a contribution on that problem. It's not 100%, but now Facebook, Google, and everybody adopted Rethink as an app. So think about it. Then my question comes to, if a 13-year-old can take the personal responsibility and feel accountable and make a difference, why not each of us as an adult?
Yeah.
And that's what the personal accountability means. I think we must stop, irrespective of our position in an organization, even if it is a 5 people company, or it is a 100,000 employee based company. If each of us, when we go to our workplace, we feel I am accountable of what I do and anything and how I can make a difference for my organization. If everybody thinks like that way, that organization has to succeed. Now you asked me a question about that, why I did not, why I separated accountability with the resolve. What I've seen is a lot of the time, the people who might feel accountable, but ultimately they cannot bring to the finish line because they don't have the resolve, right? So you can take that as a personal responsibility, but you may not have the resolve. That's why half of the way you get stuck, right? But if you have the resolve, you ultimately, and you have the accountability, it is the perfect combination. So that's why I separated the two.
Okay. I guess I'll get to resolve in just a second. One thing I think that's kind of obvious is if you removed accountability from an organization, what would happen? Obviously, that's clear, so I'm not going to ask that. But what I would like to ask is, how do I know if I'm a leader of an organization that as I increase the accountability of the organization, I'm actually getting a proportional increase in both the caring mindset and then the value to the organization. How do I measure that I'm getting improvement?
The measurement only way it would be you'll have a less customer complaint, less problem inside of the organization, because if there is a broken process, automatically other colleagues will be talking about it and they will try to come to a solution about it. If they don't, then they'll become a straightforwardness. See, if you really look at it, these are all intertwined. It's not like a only one dimensional. It is a 4-dimensional, right? Because it's all are interlinked, right? So because of that, what will happen would be you ultimately will escalate it up to the senior leadership. And if the leadership is committed and they feel that, hey, they're right, how we can give a hand. So if they can internally solve or they can need some external help to solve the problem, they can then solve the issue. But I think, you will have more customer satisfaction. You'll have more, the less problem within the organization. You can also have less waste in the organization. You'll have also more like the happy culture within the employee base. Those would be kind of a measurement metrics.
Yeah, I think there probably are some KPIs that you could dream up for measuring that, now that I think about it. Okay, and this is similar to the question that I asked before. If I'm communicating with someone in an organization, what are some of the signs that I can look for in that communication to know that personal responsibility is an organizational priority, right? How can I know that, this is a high quality organization and they're prioritizing responsibility of its workers?
I think a lot of the time, I always talk about make the decision based on data. Don't make the decision based on emotion, right? Make the decision based on data and always ask for data. Without the data, it is opinion, right? So, whenever, you go out and a leader is asking question, you're always asking for the data, saying that, okay, show me the data, right? Some of the time it can be internal customer data. Sometimes it might be external customer data. But whatever it is, I always talk about leaders always should treat their employees as an internal customer, because then the organizational whole dynamics will change. If the leaders and the senior managers treat their employees as an internal customer, because then they'll be more listening to the internal customer. Because the good thing is that if they don't listen to the internal customer, they cannot have a satisfactory internal customers, then they can never satisfy external customers, right? So I think if you can create an organization based on the data, like believing in the data, not believing in somebody's opinion, that will create that culture that you can see. So whenever you are going to an organization, if it is a quality organization or not, you can immediately figure it out when you ask them the data and they are providing the data. When you ask them how you make the decision, if they are giving you the decision based on the data, it is a quality organization. If you go there and you find, hey, I'm just making the decision because I think so, then without the data backing it up, then it is ultimately, that organization may have problem in the future.
Yeah. I would think also that if you find in your interactions with employees of a company that the employees are empowered, that would be a way that you would know that you've got accountability.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm gonna switch to the final piece of caring mindset, which I'd put on hold a second ago. Resolve. And now this is the piece that I have the most questions about. I have heard you liken resolve to passion.
Yes.
And I'm unclear about this. And here's the reason why. I might be determined to make it through basic training, for example, but I may not be passionate about it. So help me understand why passion actually is a key ingredient of resolve.
I think, see, I agree with you. The way you distinguish is brilliant. You are absolutely right that I kind of put the emphasis tremendously on the passion. But I think, it's not that everybody has to be passionate individual and it's not that, that, um, that, tomorrow I wake up and I say, hey, I wanted to be passionate and I become passionate. I don't think it works that way. And even if you don't have the passion, doesn't mean that you cannot practice resolve. It's not that. But I think what is important is you always have to think about whatever you're doing in this life, either at home or at workplace or in your community. Do you have a purpose? Do you really think, like if you are doing a job you are not enjoying at all, and you are just doing it just to pay the bill, my request would be try your level best to find another job which will make you excited, because your productivity, your achievement would be hundredfold that you may not even discover if you don't do the job you don't like to do. So, my argument is irrespective of, like, suppose I see in a organization, like especially even a smaller organization, which I knew them from a startup, and now they grew from 2 employees to 500 employees. And what I see, those entrepreneurs, they just like some individuals, and they say, and they trust those individuals, and they don't take into account this person is very good in sales. I should not force feed him because he did good in sales. Doesn't mean that I have to force feed him into put in, and I trust him. Doesn't mean that I have to force feed him to give a assignment in HR. If that employee say, I don't love HR, I don't want to go there, don't force feed that, right? Because then this employee will not only have the passion, but he will also falter in resolve, right? So I think the argument I'm making is that the people, they love to do what they do. Traditionally, I have seen and witnessed and talking to so many of these individuals that I've seen traditionally 99% of the things they do it because they have the resolve. If you didn't have the resolve, they may not have been done that because they love what they're doing. The people, they are forced to do certain things or they're not enjoying at all. And those people are really struggle on resolve. So one of the things senior leaders can really do, ask those people saying that, hey, look, I know you're doing your job in this area, but are you really having a blast, or are you really enjoying what you're doing? Or do you think that you wanted to go to another area which you might have even make even more fun for you? Find that. That is the leader's job. But once the leaders have that, then I think it's important that, if they can also find what they like to do, and a lot of the time nowadays I see the word passion became too overused. Mm-hmm. But, and I wanted to be caution about that but on the other hand is that even if you're not passionate, can you really find something which you love to do, which you give you enjoyment, which you don't feel that, you're forcefully doing this, So it can be anything, like for an example, I mentioned about that I've been becoming very interested in the arts, but I has always been interested in arts. Like, believe it or not, when I was a engineering student, at that time, I felt the importance of literature, and I established the first literary magazine in engineering school, because of my love of literature, right? And later on, and very honest with you, it affected my GPA and everything else, and my professors and the university, everybody was, like literally was discouraging me. You are crazy. Why you want the literature and all? And now here I am. I'm reading this week the Walter Isaacson's new book came out, the Leonardo da Vinci, and that is I just reading the book. It's not done yet, and here is a man born in 15th century, and he was connecting the art and the science. It's just amazing. And he was a hero of Bill Gates to Steve Jobs to all these people. They are his hero. It's just fascinating. So the point is that, and you should not leave it. It doesn't matter who said what. You just do it. And I still believe any human being has something they love to do, and you put some more time into it, and you'll be surprised that it will deliver some results to you. It can be financial result, it can be a spiritual result, it can be mental satisfaction result, whatever the way you measure. Because you don't have to have a big bank balance to become happy. Look at Mother Teresa, very happy lived her life, right? But it's not that she has millions of dollars as a bank balance. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. When I think about these stories that you've just told, the 3 or 4 different stories leading up to the conclusion here, the thing that jumps out to me in every single story is purpose.
Yes.
When a person has a purpose, their resolve will increase, right? And I would imagine same with an organization as well. Okay. The pieces of the caring mindset are candor, which is being straightforward, thoughtfulness, accountability, and steady resolve. Let's take a moment to talk about how these pieces work together to create the caring mindset. If you don't mind.
Yeah. I think what I'll be talking about is very important, because let me look back to myself. What I'm going to suggest your listeners to do, if you truly wanted to develop the caring mindset, I'm not going to promote that, hey, go there and buy my book and read the difference. That is not the main goal. I think what you should do, you go out and you reach out to your grandfather, reach out to your grandmother, reach out to your parents, reach out to your loved ones, whomever you care the most. Go to them, hug them. That will make a difference.
I want to point out something that's tangential to what you're saying, because it's an important point related to this. You have stated that the best way to teach a caring mindset is to be in the company of other caring people. And I think that's the story that you're trying to illustrate with your grandfather.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, look, those are the questions that I prepared. I always like to finish up with 3 different things. First, is there anything about caring mindset that I really didn't bring into the conversation that is a big omission that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. Yeah.
Fantastic. Besides the book, The Difference, are there any materials or resources that you would point people to?
Yeah, only thing is that if you go to my website, it's called SubirChowdhury.com. It's a spell SubirChowdhury.com. If you go there, you will find hundreds of articles and videos and all this. So, and I'm very accessible. Also, you can tweet me, at Subir Chowdhury, or you can send me an email. And if you go to my website, you will find all those information. So you can get a lot of those materials there.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, the Subir, your name is the website that has the resources. Okay,
yes.
And then, well, it looks like that's the case for all of your Twitter and all of your other social as well. Fantastic.
Yes.
Subir, let's end. Thank you very much once again for your time and insight. I enjoyed thinking through this caring mindset with you. I think it's very valuable. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This has been Intangibles, a podcast created by Antecedent Ventures. Find out more at www.antecedent.vc. I'd like to thank Denton's Venture Technology Group at dentonsventurebeyond.com for being the sponsor this season and a supportive partner. Operating as a boutique within the world's largest law firm, the Venture Technology Group runs with hard-charging tech entrepreneurs to drive growth through strategic business, finance, and legal advice, from Silicon Valley and New York to London, Berlin, Hong Kong, and beyond. Learn more at dentonsventurebeyond.com. I'd also like to thank Ben Glowy, who has been instrumental in helping me record and produce this season. I couldn't have done it without him. Find him on Twitter at visible_sound. And thank you. Keep an eye out for the next episode, and if you like this one, leave us a favorable review. I'm your host, Steve Berg.